Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday 9 to 11 PM GMT. Check out our archive and programme stream at windowsontheworld.com. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Windows on the World. Yes, we are live. I just had to check there. And what a week it's been. I'm going to get into some very interesting and, in a way, different views on what's going on with the present mind virus. We did a show last week called Mind Virus Hits the UK, and it certainly did. Now, what's interesting about all this is it's not being rolled out spontaneously, the reaction to it, that is. It's being orchestrated above national government, and it's been rolled out by computer modelling, as admitted by Boris Johnson, which was a rather strange thing for him to say, actually, because he didn't know what to say. So what he actually said was that they were going to respond to computer modelling. Now, that really stuck out to me and was very interesting. I've been looking through where this is all linked up all week. I've had people sending me a lot of stuff in, and I'm trying to be the one to decode it all here, and I've been looking today at the bigger picture, in other words, the business plan. So this week, the business plan for the world through the virus rollout and also the climate change agenda does all come together. It is one and the same economic model. But first of all, before we get into this, I'd just like to mention our talks. The Real Citizens Assembly is available to book through the website. Please do book us for talks. That's myself and or Piers Corbyn and Sandy Adams. We can all come for a day. But if you want to book me, do it through the website, info@windowsontheworld.net. And please support us on Patreon. I'm actually getting quite a lot of people writing to me, sending me very important things into the website. And also, they're starting to support us, which is great. It does help to keep this information going. But yes, we're talking about a business plan for the world here that's being rolled out. Now, this is from the World Economic Forum website. Let's just kick off with this. It says, context to the dramatic spread of COVID-19. It has disrupted lives, livelihoods, communities and businesses worldwide. All stakeholders, especially global business, must urgently come together to minimise its impact on public health and limit its potential for further disruption to lives and economies around the world. But the sum of many individual actions will not add up to a sufficient response, says the World Economic Forum. Only coordinated action by business, combined with global multi-stakeholder cooperation at exceptional scale and speed, can potentially mitigate the risk and impact of this unprecedented crisis. So the mind virus really started early last week and has escalated accordingly with the media scaremongering programme. Now, it must all be for the common good, all this scaremongering, all this panic, otherwise it would not be put into the public domain and it would not be in the public interest. So this is in the public interest. It's in the public interest for them to be scared, to start running around, buying toilet rolls and panic buying. That's in the public interest. So we have to ask ourselves why. But in France, the streets were full on Saturday as the weekly protests continued. In fact, they looked completely oblivious to any of this. The news in the UK only showed empty streets in Italy and around Europe, however. There have been green screen backdrops of red with little germy things all over them on Sky News all day, little black dots moving around as though we're being invaded by a killer virus. So this mind virus is all over the media. It would be nowhere and a minor story if it wasn't wall-to-wall brainwashing on the television. So it is meant to scare the public. It would not be mentioned on the television otherwise. Troops have been mobilised for martial law, and the over 70s have been told to stay in for 4 months, but they're not being told when it will start. Now, this is very important because it goes back to this being rolled out as a computer model. In other words, it's above national governance. Our government are being instructed from above. We're going to get into who's instructing them tonight. This is interesting in and of itself. Schools are closing. It's all coming. But If it is genuine and a real virus, it should peak and decline before any of this is introduced, which is very, very important. The Chinese are already celebrating that it's on the decline. Now, we can't believe any of this propaganda, but it all has to be put out there so we can try and decode it. But let's have a look at previous outbreaks. The World Health Organization called the 2008 outbreak of flu a pandemic, and a level 6 one at that. This kind of peaked in 2009 to 10, and they never bothered to rescind that level 6 pandemic. So we are under martial law as far as these organisations are concerned. That's the United Nations, the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum. What have they got to do it, I hear you ask? Well, the World Economic Forum are now partnered into this agenda. Let's have a look at the World Health Organization Strategic Preparedness and Response Plan. A new coronavirus disease, COVID-19, the Solidarity Response Fund, it says here, will raise money from a wide range of donors to support the work of the World Health Organization and partners to help countries respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The fund, the first of its kind, enables private individuals, corporations and institutions anywhere in the world to come together to directly contribute to global response efforts, and has been created by the United Nations Foundation and the Swiss Philanthropy Foundation together with the World Health Organization. Let's see what else it says. We are at a critical point in the global response to COVID-19. We need everyone to get involved in this massive effort to keep the world safe, said Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the World Health Organization Director General. Excuse me. We are immensely grateful to the UN Foundation and the Swiss Philanthropy Foundation for coming forward to help us set up this fund. A lot of people and institutions have been saying they want to contribute to the fight against the novel coronavirus. Well, now they can. The fund launches with major support already lined up, get this, including Facebook and Google, who have instituted a matching scheme for funds raised through their platforms, while individual donors are also supporting the fund through the COVID-19 responsefund.org. We can't ignore the fact that this is a truly global problem, one that requires truly global solutions, said Elizabeth Cousins, the UN Foundation President and CEO. The case for global cooperation could not be clearer. Communities everywhere are affected and people want to contribute. This new fund will create space for people everywhere together to fight this virus. Funds will go towards actions outlined in the COVID-19 Strategic Preparedness and Response Plan to enable all countries, particularly those most vulnerable and at risk, and with the weakest health systems, to prepare for and respond to the COVID-19 crisis, including rapidly detecting cases, stopping transmission of the virus, and caring for those affected. Well, this is philanthropy on a global scale, isn't it? What we've got to remember is, because of this kind of, in global terms, very small event, we have the shutdown of all tourism. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to be put out of work. The airline industry is on its knees. Even the Himalayas have been closed. Yes, the Himalayas are closed. Everest is not available. You can't climb up there. So this is crazy. Nepal has one suspected coronavirus victim. So there is something much bigger than a virus behind all this. So it goes into the United Nations Global Action Plan. They want to stop everyone travelling. They want to stop private transport. And they also want to test out the martial law preparedness, which is what I think this is about. They're testing out martial law preparedness, which is why it's being rolled out through computer modelling higher up than our own government, because Boris Johnson and the health minister don't know what is going on. They can't give times and dates to when the elderly are going to be quarantined. They're up in the air and there's no answers coming back. Well, no answers that are satisfactory. So countries are closing borders, tourism decimated, airlines already going out of business, almost like it was planned. So the goals of the World Business Partnership, the UN, The World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum, who are all now partners, are being implemented, and within a week and by the consent of the government. How could they have got consent for this without declaring an epidemic? It's a psychological warfare program, nothing more. However, we're going to get into the misdiagnosis of this virus, and there are people very worried about it. There's a few people who have even got it. But if you go to Worldometer, just look it up and see how many people are dying, how many people are born, and how many people have got the so-called coronavirus. But with martial law declared and a shortage of toilet roll reported due to the public crapping themselves over the media pantomime, it really is in full swing already. None of the government agents can string anything coherent together, and the experts on TV are only contributing to the decline in brain cells. I actually watched some of this today. I could not believe how banal what was coming out of the television actually was. It is clueless nonsense. But it said, well, there will be an announcement on when this is all to start at the same time that China is allegedly taking off their masks, and according to their propaganda, it's all coming to an end. So this is all very, very contradictory. But it is a planned rollout through computer modelling. So it looks like an exercise as the sound bites and measures taken are exactly what Boris Johnson said they were at the start. In other words, they're following orders. He stated last week that the agenda would be rolled out on a computer model. In other words, not as it emerged, as it was planned. That is one of the main things I wanted to get over in tonight's show, that this is being orchestrated from above the national government. So, yeah, death toll leaps and forces Johnson to act, it said in one of the newspapers. It says, well, an undiagnosed death toll is now into double figures, and it's 10 times less than your normal flu deaths for this time of year in this country. So there's also a problem that there is no test for it. Now, this is very, very important. There is also over 80% misdiagnosis reported from Chinese sources. I want to get into this now. This is from an abstract. It's from several doctors, Zhuang, Shen, Zheng, Chen, Lu and Pei. It's from an abstract available in Chinese from the publisher, and it's from a Chinese publication which says potential false positive rate among the asymptomatic affected individuals in close contacts of COVID-19 patients. I won't go through the whole thing, but it says the multivariate probabilistic sensitivity analysis results supported the base case findings with a 75% probability for the false positive rate of positive results over 47%. Conclusion. In the close contacts of COVID-19 patients, nearly half or even more of the asymptomatic infected individuals reported in the active nucleic acid test screening may be false positives. So in other words, even those diagnosed with it probably haven't got it, according to the Chinese. So that's a very important document, and that was sent to me today by Magda. So Magda actually organised our talk in Worthing, so please book us for a talk while we can still go out. Yeah, but the sound bites are rolling out all over the wallpaper word salads of these clueless reporters who, as usual, have nothing whatever to say. There's no news coming out, so we're going to try and give you some. So we're getting this new word salad that's appearing: social distancing, self-isolating, transitioning to different ways of education, big changes to the way we live. I wonder where they dreamed all this up. The US has announced community distribution hubs. It all sounds like the Global Action Plan writ large and brought into the media through 2 news agencies and repeated by actors on TV. But yes, I've been looking at the COVID Action Platform on the World Economic Forum. So, the virus rollout is a big part of a new business plan for the world. That's exactly how it is being described. It is where the big globalist world corporates meet All this will be monitored through, wait for it, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, which was recently set up. Mark Carney of the Bank of England, now the World Bank Climate Change Merchant. This is where it all joins together with the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum. This is where climate change meets virus. So let's just get into this. The Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. This is basically going to put any corporations out of business who do not comply and will not be taxed into oblivion by the World Bank. That's how it all joins up. This is a business plan which is there to bring in the Global Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Agenda 2030 Global Action Plan, which is going to put everyone into smart cities. And of course, this new pandemic is going to help that tremendously, because they want to get everybody out of private transport onto public transport, take away cars, and also take away all personal freedom, use the Internet of Things for everything, including education. And that is another point that's been brought up with this virus that I'm going to get into. But yes, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures is a financial system to cope with runaway climate change and the enforcement of financial disclosures regarding climate change. Taxes are mandatory, all businesses to be climate risk assessed, currencies digitalised and controlled by the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, the Bank of France and the Bank of International Settlements. So that's where this whole thing starts tying into a world business plan. This is where sustainable development, climate change and your virus all come together, because the goals are exactly the same for all of this. Let's have a look at this now. This was written the other day, 9th of March 2020. John Scott, who's head of sustainability and risk at the Zurich Insurance Group. This is on the World Economic Forum COVID Action Platform. Go to the WEF, the World Economic Forum website, and look through some of this stuff yourself. It's very interesting. It says the increasing frequency of disease outbreaks is linked to climate change and biodiversity loss. I told you it was all going to come together, didn't I? I'll just say that again. How does he make this fantastic leap? I wonder who put this into his highly inactive and minuscule brain. The increasing frequency of disease outbreaks is linked to climate change and biodiversity loss. Nice link there, but no evidence. It's only business, though. Remember that. The past 20 years, he says, of contained outbreaks may have led to complacency. New technologies offer hope in the search for countermeasures, but protecting the natural world must play a part too. The frequency of disease outbreaks has been increasing steadily. Between 1980 and 2013, there were 12,012 recorded outbreaks, comprising 44 million individual cases and affecting every country in the world. A number of trends have contributed to this rise, including high levels of global travel. Here we go. I told you it was coming together, didn't I? We can't have high levels of global travel anymore, not under the Global Action Plan. Trade and connectivity. In other words, we're going to control all trade through the World Bank, the IMF and the World Economic Forum. High density living. But the links to climate change and biodiversity are the most striking. Well, wait a minute. He's putting high density living there, but he's glossed over it a bit, hasn't he? Because that's the future. So what's going to happen when everyone's in a smart city, in high density living areas, breathing the same breath, the same air through their air conditioned flats and all breathing in the same stuff? Well, surely that's going to contribute to any future outbreak. That's the point. This isn't actually about health. It's about the business plan. So let's gloss over the high density living. He says deforestation has increased steadily over the past 2 decades and is linked to 31% of outbreaks such as Ebola, Zika and Nipah viruses. It couldn't be anything to do with them being made into global pandemics by the World Health Organization, could it? I don't think so, no. Deforestation drives wild animals out of their natural habitats and closer to human populations, creating greater opportunity for zoonotic diseases. Diseases spread from animals to humans. Now, This is a massive red herring, of course, but it's just business after all. So we are now entering the United Nations, World Health Organization, World Economic Forum Global Lie platform. Let's see what they've got to say on the World Economic Forum. Movements of large groups to new locations, often under poor condition, increases displaced populations' vulnerability to biological threats such as measles, malaria, diarrheal measles and acute respiratory infections. Oh, just like the one that they released recently. So, this is interesting. This is where the martial law, the crackdown, the smart cities and the Internet of Things all come into play. Let's have a look at this next article now from Business Insider. Banks cannot escape the consequences of a wider collapse in markets in the event of a continued loss of investor confidence and or a rise in interest rates from today's extraordinarily low levels. Such an outcome would lead to increased defaults on bank loans together with shrinking in the value of collateral in the banking system. And asset prices could be vulnerable even after the coronavirus scare because the central bank's asset purchases drove investors to search for yield regardless of the dangers. As a result, risk is still systematically mispriced around the financial system. Well, so basically what they're saying here, I think, is that only corporations who comply with all the UN goals and the World Bank will be allowed to survive, and they will become agents of change in the global governance sector. Well, that was a good word salad, wasn't it? So this is a global action plan brought to you by the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the United Nations and the World Bank. Let's now have a look at the website worldcitizen.org. The coronavirus outbreak has been declared a global public health emergency by the WHO. The United Nations Global Goal 3, Sustainable Development Goals, works to achieve good health and well-being for all, which means urgently addressing issues worldwide that present a global health threat like coronavirus. Now, this is what they're doing now, is trying to fund, yes, they're trying to get private investors to fund the vaccine. We're going to get into that in a minute. Life in the era of coronavirus would be far simpler if we had a vaccine already. But these things take time and money to develop from scratch. That's why Britain has just stepped up with a second pledge in the space of a month to the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. That's the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, CEPI, an organisation leading from the front in the research and development of a vaccine against COVID-19. All this has happened very quickly, hasn't it? Like we said at the beginning, it's almost like it's been orchestrated from above our government. So let's have a look what the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations is. It's a global alliance financing and coordinating the development of vaccines against emerging infectious diseases. CEPI is an innovative partnership between public, private, philanthropic and civil organisations launched at Davos in 2017 to develop vaccines to stop future epidemics. The CEPI has reached over $750 million of its $1 billion funding target. Priority diseases include Ebola, Lassa virus, Middle East respiratory syndrome, coronavirus, Rift Valley fever, chikungunya virus. The CEPI also invests in platform technologies that can be used for rapid vaccine and immunoprophylactic development against unknown pathogens, i.e. Disease X. To date, CEPI is committed to investing up to $475 million in vaccine and platform development. Learn more at cepi.net. Do have a look at that. It says the rapid global spread and unique epidemiological characteristics of the novel coronavirus is deeply concerning. No kidding. CEPI has moved with great urgency and in coordination with the World Health Organization, who is leading the development of a coordinated international response. So far, we have initiated 6 partnerships to improve our understanding and to develop vaccines against the novel coronavirus. The programs will leverage rapid response platforms already supported by CEPI as well as new partnerships. The aim is to advance COVID-19 vaccine candidates into clinical testing as quickly as possible. So, the WEF, the WHO, the UN and the World Bank are all working with their partners, their business partners, to globally vaccinate all. And they are looking for corporate investors, which is where all of this stuff with this facility that I talked about at the beginning of the show, linked into climate change, all actually come together. Because this is all about corporate global investment. The call for $2 billion worth of new funding will enable CEPI to expand the number of vaccine candidates at the outset to increase the chance of success and to fund the clinical trials of these candidate vaccines. Now, bearing in mind that they haven't even got a way of testing for this virus yet, isn't this all a little bit premature unless there's something going on? In other words, it's a computer-modelled program that is being rolled out in real time. So, yes, the next stage would be vaccine development for 8 candidates through phase 1 of the clinical trials with $375 million by the end of March 2020. So we're getting quite near, aren't we? And didn't it all come into play at just the right time, the mind virus? The mind virus hit the public just in time for the computer models to actually work alongside the public response. Initial investments to expand global manufacturing capacity. That's what they want in phase 2 to 3 of the trials. These investments are needed to ensure the vaccine is ultimately available at scale and globally. They want $400 million to be invested in it by the end of June 2020. Yeah, and as it carries on. So basically, it's enhancing global manufacturing capacity with tech transfer to geographically distributed locations of up to 3 candidates. Completion of the clinical trial testing. This is going to be by the end of June, it says here, I think. Preparation of regulatory dossiers for emergency authorization and licensing submission. So it's all in the bank, literally. To ensure availability of funds and reflecting the many uncertainties that will surround COVID-19, the World Bank has created a financial vehicle whereby funds can be returned to donors if not used for the response or if the epidemiological picture changes and vaccine development is deemed unwarranted. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So they're going to get their money back if this vaccination rollout is deemed unwarranted. Alternatively, at the donor's discretion, funds may be retained at the World Bank for use in a future Disease X scenario. So maybe this martial law rollout and this testing of the public and basically getting everyone under control is just a plan for the future. And of course, we had Event 201. Look up Event 201, which was a proposed rollout of an epidemic several months ago. And that basically paved the way for the computer program, which is now being rolled out. So this is all very interesting. But do go to the worldeconomicforum.org. Because it says here, the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization are launching an emergency coronavirus task force of 200 business leaders, including executives from Alphabet and KPMG. The World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum are launching an emergency task force to respond. This is called the COVID Action Platform for Business. It has more than 200 corporate members, including Alphabet, NASDAQ, Inc., KPMG, HP. It is open to any stakeholder interested in joining. So if you've got a few quid, why not invest? Because if it doesn't happen, you can put your money into Disease X. Disease X, which may be rolled out in the future. Some of the group's initial plans include helping the World Health Organization raise the estimated $12 billion it says is needed to create and distribute a coronavirus vaccine. Some of this is starting to sound a little bit contradictory because didn't they just say 2 billion? The World Health Organization estimates, here we go, $2 billion in funds are needed for the creation of a coronavirus vaccine. And another 10 billion for the distribution of that vaccine. Oh, I missed that out. So let's have a look now at excerpts from the COVID Action Platform. This is all coming together, isn't it? The whole of this really starts to come together. Now, having worked on this for a very long time, it seems quite obvious to me what's going on here because of the organisations that I've mentioned. The World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, under the World Bank, and these investors, these globalist companies, the NGOs where it's all rolled out, the whole UN Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Plans, the Smart Cities Agenda, the Internet of Things, the 5G Agenda. Yes, I have looked into that and its connection with the coronavirus, but when we look at this bigger picture, we can see something else emerging. We're talking about a global business plan that's being implemented. It's being implemented strategically, nothing spontaneous here whatsoever. It is an exercise for martial law. It could be the shortcut they need to wait to ban the private transport, get more useful idiots on board to demonise all your freedoms. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed how many of these agents of change there are on Facebook, being advertised on social media, these NGOs that they're working for, these organisations that tie directly into the UN? They're getting these narcissistic puppets everywhere, so-called sports personalities. They're rolling them all out. The agents are being trained in their thousands, and they are all you will hear and see with the promotion of these global projects. These sort of dumb sports personalities, these empowered idiots who repeat sound bites for these UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is how it's all rolled out. This is the public face of it all. This all coincides with the goals of the United Nations and the World Health Organization, along with the World Economic Forum, who are also running the show. Remember, these are business partners now. This is from the World Economic Forum website. Excuse me a minute. As the International Organization for Public-Private Cooperation, the World Economic Forum, acting as partner to the World Health Organization, is mobilizing all stakeholders to protect lives and livelihoods. The context. Let's have a look at what context this is on. This is from the World Economic Forum website. The dramatic spread of COVID-19 has disrupted lives, livelihoods, communities and businesses worldwide. All stakeholders, especially global business, must urgently come together to minimise its impact on public health, limit its potential for further disruption to lives and economies around the world. We started off the show with this, but it's worth reiterating. But the sum of many individual actions will not add up to a sufficient response. Only coordinated action by business combined with the global multi-stakeholder cooperation at exceptional scale and speed can potentially mitigate the risk and impact of this unprecedented crisis. I don't think it's unprecedented, but it's been rolled out as though it is. Our contribution, it says here, yes. The spread of COVID-19 demands global cooperation among governments, international organisations and the business community. This multi-stakeholder cooperation is at the centre of the World Economic Forum's mission as the international organisation for public-private cooperation. Remember what we've been talking about for years, public-private cooperation, NGOs, the rollout of the whole thing through international organisations in every country which are coordinating this through the World Bank, through the World Health Organization, of course the United Nations. There are hundreds of thousands of its agents all over the world with one aim, to impose this on the world population. So they're going to try and vaccinate the world. They've already tried to give everyone in the world a birth certificate from 1990. They're trying to track and trace everyone and put a microchip in them. That is the plan. And now it's all being put into the open. This is where the Global Action Plan, which we cover in great detail, all comes together. Like from the documents released in the late 80s, such as Our Common Future, where they said how this was going to be rolled out. It was going to be rolled out in this corporate way. Global governance above national government. That's the point here. This is above national government, and I think that's the most important thing here. This is being rolled out on a computer model, which Boris Johnson mentioned very flippantly because he didn't know what he was talking about earlier on in the week. Look at the enablers of global governance, the World Wilderness Conference, where 50% of the world's land and oceans are being privatised. This is a business plan for the takeover of all infrastructure in the world, which affects the livelihood of all people. And it's about control and management of population, smart city agenda, Internet of Things, 5G, virus control and management. And that's what this is all about. Managing these viruses, getting the vaccinations, making money out of it, and controlling and limiting and reducing the population. It all started in 1987 at the World Wilderness Conference. And remember, we've got Wild 11 this year. The World Wilderness Conference started off a thing called the Global Environmental Facility, which is there to lend money to poor countries to take over their infrastructure, and it's been going on ever since. Yes, this is the conclusion of 30 to 40 years' work, and it's now looks as though they're trying to get it into its final stages. Nobody will be left behind, as the UN like to say. Now let's get on to education. This is on the COVID action platform of the World Economic Forum. Go and have a look for yourself. Education to be nudged and pushed to change. It says this could lead to surprising innovations. The slow pace of change in academic institutions globally is lamentable. What do they mean by lamentable here? They mean that it's not fully under the control of the Sustainable Development Goals. It means that some teachers and some lecturers may be putting in some facts which are contrary to the UN World Bank Global Action Plan. Listen to this. I think I should read it again. The slow pace of change in academic institutions globally is lamentable. We've had it for hundreds of years. Students sit in classrooms, they have lectures, they do exams. Okay, so what's going to be different? I wonder how they're going to do it differently. With centuries-old lecture-based approaches to teaching, entrenched institutional biases, and outmoded classrooms. Oh, I wonder what's coming next. On March the 11th, 2020, the World Economic Forum and World Health Organization launched an emergency task force to respond to the novel coronavirus outbreak. The task force is called the COVID Action Platform. Look it up. For business. And this is how it's going to be applied to education. COVID-19 has become a catalyst for educational institutions worldwide to search for innovative solutions in a relatively short period of time. Oh, it's almost like it's been rolled out as part of some global action plan run through a computer model. This is to help slow the virus's spread. Students in Hong Kong started learning at home in February via interactive apps. In China, 120 million Chinese got access to learning material through live television broadcasts. Now, can you see why they are demonising people who drive their children to school? Because in the future they won't be going to school. It'll all be done through the Internet of Things. The mass brainwashing programme will come from one globalist source. There won't be any need for schools anymore. That's what they're saying here. Other simpler, yet no less creative solutions were implemented around the globe. In one Nigerian school, standard synchronous online learning tools such as reading material via Google Classroom were augmented with synchronous face-to-face video instruction to help preempt school closures. So it's the standardising of global brainwashing through Google. That's the new education system, the Internet of Things and 5G. This is already planned, it's already been rolled out. It says with 5G technology becoming more prevalent in countries such as China, the US and Japan, we will see learners and solution providers truly embracing the learning anywhere, anytime concept of digital education in a range of formats. Standardised brainwashing globally. That's what they're talking about here. Traditional in-person classroom learning will be complemented with new learning modalities, from live broadcasts to educational influences. educational influencers are going to be programming children with virtual reality experiences. It says here, this is the end game. This is control of all minds. Learning could become a habit that is integrated into daily routines, a true lifestyle. A complete globalised and standardised brainwashing programme without any interference or need for teachers, just regional monitors. That's what I see happening here. This is the real intention of the Global Action Plan. In other words, they will be brainwashed all day, every day with the Sustainable Development Goals, with the climate change agenda, and they will be brainwashed into getting vaccinated. They will be brainwashed into not going anywhere on holiday. They will be brainwashed into a lifetime of servitude through the Internet of Things with basically 5G technology and, of course, virtual reality experiences. They won't need real experiences anymore. So, the vaccine, it says, will be developed by June. Will it be compulsory to all and to anyone who travels to any country? That's the question. This pantomime is well planned, and it's all about a new economy being shaped for global corporate control and the destruction of all autonomy. That's what this is about. That's what we've been talking about. That's what our talks, the bigger picture, the real Citizens' Assembly is all about. We've shown over the years how this all comes together and how it goes global to local and how it's been put into your life through trained agents of this new world system. We're taking it a step further tonight because they're now announcing it. This is the Global Action Plan from the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and the World Economic Forum. All business partners in this, working with corporates such as Google, major corporations, 5G, the Internet of Things. All of this is now the virtual reality that people will be living in smart cities. So, if you don't like that idea, maybe it's time to resist. Book us for a talk, start forming networks, and they can't control everybody, can they? I wonder if they can. Let's see if they can, because the mind virus has spread so much since last week. And for those of you who are not hoarding toilet rolls and watching television, maybe there is some hope. But this virus exercise is the work in action. It is the start of the beginning of the end for all who value having their own minds. So that's about it for this show. It was a very information-packed one. And what I'm going to do to finish off with is look at the COVID Action Platform. Just to reiterate, go to the worldeconomicforum.org, that's weforum.org, and take a look around yourself. You will be surprised at how it all comes together once you start reading it. Let's have a see what it says in their document, which is their action platform document. As the International Organization for Public-Private Cooperation, the World Economic Forum, acting as partner to the World Health Organization, is mobilizing all stakeholders to protect lives and livelihood. This is the corporatization of all health, everything. Let's have a look at the context. It says here, the dramatic spread of COVID-19 has disrupted lives, livelihoods, communities. Yes, we've heard that before. That's on the main website. But the sum of many individual actions will not add up to a sufficient response. Only coordinated action by business, combined with global, multi-stakeholder cooperation at exceptional scale and speed, can potentially mitigate the risk and impact of this unprecedented crisis, which, of course, they created. Our contribution, it says here, the spread of COVID-19 demands global cooperation. Galvanise the global business community for collective action. Nobody will be left behind. That's what they're saying here. Protect people's livelihoods and facilitate business continually. That's business that goes along with it, remember. Anything that can't afford to pay these taxes to get into the climate change and global change agenda will be bankrupted. And we're seeing that now. Corporations are going to be taken down. And it's all due to what's going on with the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, and what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. It says they're going to mobilise cooperation and business support for the COVID-19 response. It's a business plan, everybody. approach at the request of the World Health Organization, the Wellcome Trust and our partners. The COVID Action Platform draws on all the forum's stakeholders, communities and capabilities. The platform will enable leaders from the public and private sectors, in other words, the useful idiots who are going to be spouting word salads on behalf of the United Nations, to leverage and form exceptional cross-cutting communities of action. Exceptional cross-cutting communities of action. Yes, useful idiots galore. Initially, members of the COVID Action Platform will be invited to join or form networks of stakeholder cooperation to galvanise the global business community for collective action. Join CEOs, chairpersons, senior executives and corporate COVID response leads to discuss global, industry and region-specific impact, improve coordination and pursue opportunities for collective action. Access trusted information and analysis and engage in digital collaboration and peer-to-peer interaction in real time. Empower community leaders. Useful idiots galore. They're being recruited by the thousand. Reinforce solidarity. In other words, demonise everybody who you're up against. Demonise anybody who is outside the accepted corridor of opinion, including mobilising young global leaders. Thousands of Greta Thunbergs, thousands of brain-damaged autistic morons are going to be telling you what to do. Global shapers, media and civil society ambassadors. These are the young global leaders who are being trained by the UN to implement your enslavement. Wow. 2. Protect people's livelihoods and facilitate business continuity. Well, I don't think that's going to be happening if you're a smaller business. Develop and share tools and best practices to assess risk, maintain operations and protect employees. Amplify trusted information, especially to protect people from rumours and misinformation. Oh, I wonder what they mean by that. Analyse impact of work stoppages, school closures and other social distancing interventions on households and economies. The reason they're going to be getting all the kids to stay at home is because they're going to be rolling out this new agenda of Google and the World Health Organization and the UN brainwashing your kids all day long without the need for any intervention. This isn't the state now we're talking about. This is the global state. This is it. This is the plan in action. It says here, analyse impact of work stoppages, school closures and other social distancing interventions on households and economies. Oh, fantastic. 3. Mobilise cooperation and business support for the COVID-19 response. Well, they're obviously putting a lot into this. Strengthen supply chains to ensure that strategic commodities and equipment are available and accessible. Harness big data and artificial intelligence to mitigate impact and improve decision making. Going above national government. Support mechanisms for business donations and contributions to the public health response and towards development of available and accessible vaccines, treatments and cures. So how to contribute? Join the COVID Action Platform and nominate a key contact person. Well, why don't we all do that? See what happens. Contribute knowledge and know-how relating to any of the 3 priorities and related activities. Those are what I've just been talking about. Provide logistical, technical or communication support for the platform or its activities. Second, an individual from your organisation to work full or part-time to scale up the platform and play an integral role in shaping the global response. How many useful idiots do they need? Answer, as many as they can get. To serve this community, the forum has established a specialised team dedicated to this effort. To contact the team, please write to healthsecurity@weforum.org. Okay, everybody, you know who to write to now if you want to become a global change agent. If you don't, well, keep stockpiling the toilet roll and I will be back on air on Wednesday. Quite a lot to get through there. I'm actually quite pleased that I did because it's brought things into a much bigger picture. The things that we talk about are the bigger picture, and I hope that was clear. In actual fact, I think this show tonight is probably worth listening to a couple of times, and look at the links. Just go to the worldeconomicforum.org and it should explain what this is about, why it's above national government, why Boris Johnson doesn't know what the hell he's doing, why the health minister doesn't know what he's talking about, clearly doesn't know what he's talking about, because this is a computer modelled rollout of an existing plan from the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and the United Nations. And their agents are everywhere. So, join me on Wednesday. I'm going to be talking to Jerry Marzinski, probably on a different subject. We're going to be talking about demonic possession. Well, it's not too different from what we're talking about tonight, really, is it? We're going to be talking about demonic possession to Jerry Marzinski, a psychic practitioner from the United States of America. We've had him on before. Check out Demons Are Real, or Are Demons Real? And that's in the archive at windowsontheworld.net. So I'm going to be talking to Jerry on Wednesday. Do please help us through Patreon. The film's coming on brilliantly. I've been exhausted for a couple of days, just got myself back up and running again today. And I have so much information to put out. So do join us on Wednesday, join us on Sunday, help us through Patreon, check out the website, tell your friends and amuse your enemies. So that's it for this week. And thanks to everyone who's in chat. And I'll just see what's going on in there. Standardised global brainwashing, lol. Laugh out loud. Well, I suppose you have to, don't you? That's Monthly Blimpton. And yes, do please join us on Wednesday at 8 p.m, which is on YouTube while we're still there, but it's also goes live on windowsontheworld.net, as does this show, as many people know. But this show goes out on windowsontheworld.net live, 9 p.m. on Sunday on the live shows page. Every Wednesday on the homepage, you can see our live stream there. So thanks very much, everybody, and I will be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Good night. Join me, Mark Windows, for Windows on the World live every Sunday, 9 to 11 p.m. GMT. Check out our archive and program stream at windowsontheworld.net.